First, the Israeli army has today announced the opening of an additional aid crossing into the Gaza Strip ahead of an American deadline that could see some military assistance to Israel cut. Hours before the deadline, though, 8 international organisations issued a statement saying Israel had failed to meet the US target, adding that conditions are worse than at any point during the 13-month-old war in Gaza. Last week, a UN-backed assessment concluded that famine is imminent in parts of the north of Gaza, where Israel has imposed a siege for more than a month. France 24's Caris Garland has our first report.
Crowding around a food distribution site in Deir al-Balah, scores of Palestinians seek to stave off the hunger that's become so widespread. Humanitarian conditions in the Gaza Strip remain dire, and on Tuesday, 8 international aid organizations said that Israel had missed a US deadline to reduce human suffering in the territory. The US sent Israel a letter on October 13, warning it had 30 days to take a list of steps to improve the situation or risk losing American military support. On Monday, Israel's new foreign minister appeared to downplay the deadline.
We see how we can respond in difficult circumstances to the humanitarian demands. I'm sure that we can also reach understanding with our American friends.
According to the aid organizations, Israel showed partial or inconsistent implementation on 4 of the American demands and non-compliance, delays or backtracking on 15 of them. One key demand was to increase the amount of aid trucks entering Gaza. The UN said an average of 37 trucks passed into the Strip per day in October. That's compared to roughly 200 per day in the 2 previous months. But barely any of this made it to northern Gaza, where Israel launched a major offensive weeks ago. The Israeli military says it's fighting Hamas militants who have regrouped in the north. Rights groups and observers have accused Israel of trying to implement a plan in which the army forcibly displaces the population from the area. In its letter to Israel, the US had asked for written commitment that the military was not seeking to isolate northern Gaza.
Well, let's speak on the programme live now to Saleem Oweis. He's a communications officer with the UN Children's Agency, UNICEF. He joins us from Amman in Jordan. Hello to you and thanks for joining us.
Hello, Nadia. Thank you.
What is you and your colleagues at the United Nations' best understanding of how much aid is getting into northern Gaza at the moment?
Well, it's not even remotely close to what is needed. We're talking about just last month, a little bit over 50 trucks went in. Since the beginning of, or the year after October last year, it's been around, the average was 93 trucks a day, which is over 2 million people. That's just a fraction of a truck per person per year. That's not really even enough to sustain life itself, not to mention the immense needs that has been created by the conflict, by the violence, by the war. We're talking about a lack of the basics, water, food, shelter, medicine, and medical supplies. All of these are just not there, and they're not being allowed to go in.
Are they not being allowed to go in by Israel? Because Israel is denying famine-like conditions in the north. It's also often blamed Hamas for the situation in the enclave.
Well, let's face the facts. Now, in the latest reports that we receive on hunger, malnutrition, and famine, the famine is imminent, and it's been that way for the past months. Every month it's even worse. Every report that comes in shows a worsening situation, while when borders are a little bit more relaxed, things get better, but the overall picture is really getting much worse. And during the past weeks, it's been horrific, and it's been shameful, the amount of aid that comes in, especially in the north of Gaza. You just mentioned famine-like conditions there. and we are afraid that famine might have been already there for a while now. So actually, the situation on the ground is really dire. That's what we're seeing, and that's what people are experiencing day in, day out.
And give us a sense then as to the kind of impact that is having in the north of Gaza on children. I mean, it sounds a bit trite to kind of ask you how bad things are for children right now, but just can you help us quantify or visualize how children in the north are coping with a situation like this?
Well, unfortunately, the images that you're showing on your screens right now, those are not how children in Gaza live normally before 1 year ago. These are man-made conditions. These are emerging conditions that came due to the violence and the continued bombardment of the Strip. This is the situation now in Gaza, but unfortunately, we're afraid that these are becoming the norm, and we are used to seeing these images. This is not the reality. I was in Gaza and in North Gaza specifically 2 months ago or 3 months ago, and children were asking me to please get us anything other than the canned food that we can't eat anymore. And it's, to begin with, it's not enough, and it's the same thing all over again. They want something. They ask for vegetables. For a child to ask for a vegetable, that's a big thing. That means that they've not seen vegetables for so long. For a child who just imagining themselves eating, the stories that we get from the ground, the videos that we publish on our platforms, it tells the story. Children are looking for an end to the hunger. That's one child that we talked to. She said, "I just want not to be hungry, not to sleep hungry, and not to wake up hungry."
I'm interested in the fact that you yourself were in Gaza in the north, you mentioned a couple of months ago. Can you give us a sense then of what struck you most as somebody who works for the United Nations? And perhaps you can tell us a bit as well about what access is like in the north, because we've been reporting it is effectively under siege-like conditions now.
Well, when I was there, it was a cumbersome procedure to be able to go to the north. It's not safe. It goes through a lot of clearances, step by step, and just to get. And I was at that point, I was on a reunification mission to get children back to their parents who were separated from to the north and from the north back. And to get there, that mission was denied several times. That was the fourth time that we tried when it happened. The wait on the several waiting points and the checkpoints is horrific. What really kind of stood out is the amount of and the mass destruction that I saw. All the coastal line is powder-like. It's really like, and when you compare it to photos from Gaza before, a beautiful beach, a beautiful coastal line, now it's just powder, and it's really horrible, really heart-aching to see these images. And then you meet the people and you see the actual struggle that they live day in, day out. The children asking for food, just being happy to see a car that is coming from outside of the northern part. For them, this is a scene.
And look, we've been talking about the north of Gaza, and we've heard this line from agencies like yours before for getting on for a year now, that nowhere in Gaza is safe. But I do wonder how different the situation is for children now in the centre, the south of Gaza, compared to these particularly dangerous extreme conditions in the north.
Well, it's really, I'm not sure if it's different. It's just a different reality, maybe. Maybe if we're talking about the whole of Gaza, and I said a year after last October, or from the beginning of the escalation, only 93 trucks went in. That's for the whole of Gaza. The situation in the north is even worse. Now we're talking about escalations and heavy bombardment of Beit Lahia, of Jabalia, of Beit Hanun. All of those are not, they don't get aid. And even if some aid is getting in. It's just a few trucks that doesn't even meet the first and essential needs of those places. So I think there are a little bit of difference, but as you said, nowhere in Gaza is safe. And I think that's the underlying issue here is children don't have a place to be, don't have a place to escape violence, and don't have a way to get to the aid or the aid to them wherever they are in Gaza.
Saleem Oweis talking to us there from UNICEF. He was himself in Gaza several months ago. Thank you very much indeed.